if I receive the gifts, to pass them along. Whatever people think of me, why, I'm grateful, but it's not a lot of my doing.
In the electrifying world of rock and roll, few voices echoed with as much soul and power as Roy Orbison's. He wasn't just a music legend, he was a beacon of raw emotion, captivating millions with his haunting ballads and iconic sound.
I don't quite know how to feel when so many people compliment me and use words like legend. These were just gifts that I was given.
But behind the spotlight and standing ovations lay a hidden story, one marked by heartbreak, mystery, and a shocking downfall. How did a man who gave the world so much beauty end up surrounded by such darkness? Join us as we dive deep into the gripping and emotional journey of Roy Orbison. From his meteoric rise to global stardom, to the devastating twists that followed, this is a tale of triumph, tragedy, and a legacy that refuses to fade. The early years of Roy Orbison. Before we explore the tragic and scandalous end of Roy Orbison's life, it's essential to journey back to his roots and the path that led him to become one of the most influential musicians of his generation. Roy Orbison, one of the most influential voices in rock history, was born on April 23, 1936, in the small town of Vernon, Texas. He was the second of 3 sons born to Orby Lee Orbison and Nadine Vesta Schultz. His father worked as an oil field driller, a job made all the more difficult by the lingering effects of the Great Depression, which had devastated employment opportunities in the region. Meanwhile, his mother Nadine found comfort and expression through painting and writing poetry, a creative spark that would later echo in Roy's own artistry. The Orbison family heritage stretches back centuries to Thomas Orbison, born in 1715 in Lurgan, Northern Ireland. Thomas would later immigrate to the province of Pennsylvania in the mid-1700s, establishing roots that would eventually branch out to Texas. By 1942, in the hope of finding steadier work, the Orbisons relocated to Fort Worth, where aircraft factory jobs were booming due to wartime demand. Roy's early education began at Denver Avenue Elementary School in Fort Worth. However, a local polio scare led the family to move back to Vernon. It was during this period, on his 6th birthday, that Roy received a gift that would change his life: a guitar from his father. With guidance from both his father and older brother, Roy began to learn the instrument, and by the age of 7, music had become more than just a hobby. It was the driving force of his life. During these early years, Roy was heavily influenced by the country music he heard on the radio. Lefty Frizzell's emotional vocal style resonated with him so deeply that decades later, Roy would use the pseudonym Lefty Wilbury when he performed with the supergroup The Traveling Wilburys. Other artists such as Hank Williams, Jimmy Rogers, and Moon Mullican also left a lasting impression on his evolving style. A particularly formative moment came when he watched Ernest Tubb perform live from the back of a truck in Fort Worth, Roy's first encounter with a professional music performance. Growing up in West Texas, Roy was exposed to a wide range of musical influences beyond country. These included rhythm and blues, Tex-Mex sounds, orchestral music by Mantovani, and the distinctive tones of Cajun folk. One of his earliest public performances was of the Cajun classic Yo Le Blonde, which he would revisit time and time again throughout his career. By the age of 8, Roy was already singing regularly on a local radio program, and before long, he became its main host. When he was just 9 years old, Roy's talent won him a local radio contest, which led to his own weekly show. This early success gave him the confidence to pursue music seriously. However, he also struggled with severe nearsightedness, requiring thick glasses that made him self-conscious. His naturally white blonde hair added to his insecurities, prompting him to dye it black in an effort to appear older and more striking. In 1949, at just 13 years old, Roy formed his first band, the Wink Westerners, with a group of school friends. The group began performing at local honky-tonks and were featured in a weekly morning radio slot. By 1953, their reputation had grown enough that they were paid $400 to play at a dance, a moment Roy later described as the first time he realized he could actually make money through music. Despite his growing passion for music, Roy followed a more traditional path and enrolled at North Texas State College in Denton, with plans to major in geology. It was a fallback plan in case music didn't work out. However, when he discovered that fellow student Pat Boone had already landed a record deal, Roy felt a renewed sense of urgency to chase his dream. It was during this time that he encountered the song Ooby Dooby, written by classmates Dick Penner and Wade Moore. Roy immediately saw its potential and brought it back home to perform with his band. After completing his first year of college, Roy transferred to Odessa Junior College in 1955. Initially majoring in geology, he soon switched to studying history and English. During this period, the Wink Westerners underwent some personnel changes, rebranded themselves, and entered a talent contest, which they won. This victory led to their own weekly television show on KMID-TV in Midland, Texas. Between their TV appearances, weekend gigs, and schoolwork, the band was constantly working to perfect their sound and gain recognition. Roy Orbison's early life was filled with both struggle and promise. From humble beginnings in rural Texas to the bright lights of local television, every step of his journey was fueled by a deep love for music. His resilience, quiet intensity, and devotion to his craft laid the groundwork for a career that would eventually make him a legend. But as we'll soon see, his path to superstardom would not be without heartbreak and unexpected tragedy. The journey to stardom. Roy Orbison's rise to fame wasn't a straightforward climb. It was a winding journey marked by pivotal encounters and defining decisions. One such unforgettable moment came when he crossed paths with the legendary Johnny Cash. At the time, Cash was touring through the region and happened to appear on the same local show as Roy's band, the Wink Westerners. That brief meeting left a lasting impact. Johnny Cash's warm encouragement gave Roy the push he needed to take a bold step, reaching out to Sam Phillips, the famed founder of Sun Records. Though the response he received was a dismissive, "Johnny Cash doesn't run Sun Records," Roy didn't let it deter him. Instead, he took it as a challenge, holding firmly to his vision and continuing to pursue his dream. Fueled by his determination, Roy and his band continued to gain local popularity. Their appearances on KMID-TV in Midland were a hit, eventually earning them another show on KOSA TV. Around this time, the band underwent a transformation. Rebranding themselves as the Teen Kings, they entered a new chapter in 1956 by recording Ooby Dooby for the Odessa-based G-Well label. But it was a chance phone call that would change everything. A local record store owner, Papa Holyfield, believed in the song so much that he played Ooby Dooby over the phone for Sam Phillips himself. The gamble paid off. Phillips was intrigued, and soon after, the Teen Kings were offered a recording contract with Sun Records. This was a breakthrough moment for Roy Orbison. Signing with Sun Records marked his official entry into the national music scene. But with success came new pressures. The band now faced the harsh realities of the industry: tight schedules, creative tensions, and the growing strain of maintaining group harmony under the spotlight. Could they weather the storm and hold their ground in the fiercely competitive world of rock and roll? Or would the pressure pull them apart just as they were starting to rise? Stick around as we dive deeper into the twists and turns of Roy Orbison's incredible journey, one filled with passion, perseverance, and the kind of moments that legends are made of. Early success. In the early days, the Teen Kings made their mark with a re-recorded version of Ooby Dooby at Sun Studio in Memphis. This song was a hit, breaking into the Billboard Hot 100 and selling 200,000 copies. The band toured with some big names, and Roy Orbison, heavily influenced by Elvis Presley, gave frenetic performances to win over the crowd. Despite the success, tensions arose within the band over writing credits and royalties, leading to their eventual split. Roy stayed in Memphis and invited his girlfriend, Claudette Frady, to join him. They lived in Phillips's home, and Roy focused on perfecting his guitar skills in the studio. Despite initial lukewarm responses to his ballad, The Clown, Roy persevered and continued to improve. Financial success was slow at first, but royalties from Claudette's work helped him make ends meet. He even managed to buy his own Cadillac. Feeling constrained by Sun Records, Roy put recording on hold and focused on touring Texas. However, his love for music led him to a short residency at Acuff Rose Music, a songwriting firm specializing in country music. Roy worked tirelessly, writing songs and making demonstration tapes to send to Wesley Rose. He also had the opportunity to work with Chet Atkins, who had played guitar with Presley. Despite his shy and timid demeanor, Roy's talent caught the attention of songwriter Joe Melson, and they collaborated on writing songs together. Roy recorded several songs for RCA Victor at their Nashville studios, but only 2 singles were released by the label. It was then that Wesley Rose introduced Roy to producer Fred Foster at Monument Records, where he would soon make a pivotal career move: Monument Records and stardom. When Roy Orbison signed with Monument Records, he had no idea it would become the launching pad for his global stardom. At Monument, Roy not only reignited his creative spark, but also fully embraced his artistic identity, paving the way to a remarkable music career. Under the direction of producer Fred Foster, Roy emerged as a groundbreaking figure in the industry, leaving an enduring imprint on modern music. Monument provided the ideal environment for Roy to tap into his full potential. It was here that he helped pioneer the Nashville sound, collaborating with the elite group of session players known as the Nashville A-Team. This signature sound, crafted by legendary producers Chet Atkins and Owen Bradley, had previously shaped the careers of icons like Patsy Cline and even caught the attention of Sam Phillips. During his first recording session at Monument's Nashville studio, Roy recorded Paperboy and its B-side, With the Bug. Unfortunately, neither track charted. Still, Roy remained undeterred, determined to refine his sound. With the technical expertise of engineer Bill Porter and Fred Foster's production guidance, along with top-tier musicians, Roy began to find his musical identity. Intent on elevating his work, Roy asked for a string section in his next session. This led to the recording of 3 new songs, including Uptown, co-written with Joe Melson. As they listened to the playback, Roy and Joe were captivated by the lush orchestration and haunting beauty of what they had created. According to the Rolling Stone Illustrated History of Rock and Roll, Roy brought a new level of drama and grandeur to rock music in Nashville, akin to the orchestral power found in Phil Spector's famous productions. Although Uptown only peaked at number 72 on the Billboard Hot 100, Roy remained focused. At the close of the 1950s, rock and roll was evolving. The charts were now dominated by teen idols, novelty songs, and polished girl groups. Realizing he needed to adapt, Roy sought a new sound to remain relevant in the changing landscape. In early 1960, Roy and Melson crafted a song that fused elements of Uptown and their earlier work, Come Back to Me, My Love. With strings and backing vocals from the Anita Kerr Singers, The track featured a soaring falsetto note that biographer Alan Clayson described as emerging from deep within Roy's soul, not just his throat. That song was Only the Lonely Know the Way I Feel. Though initially pitched to Elvis Presley and the Everly Brothers, both passed. Undeterred, Roy and Melson recorded it at RCA Victor's Nashville studio. Engineer Bill Porter tried a novel approach, mixing the sound from the top down rather than the conventional bottom-up method. The result? A dramatic and unique sonic blend that became Roy's signature. Only the Lonely rocketed to number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 and topped charts in the UK and Australia. The song marked a turning point. From then on, Roy and Melson wrote with his distinct voice in mind, designing songs that would highlight its emotional range and power. Roy himself admitted that he had grown fond of the sound of his own voice, enjoying the way it could sing and ring. He believed that between Ooby Dooby and Only the Lonely, his voice had matured into something truly special. The success was instant. Roy became a household name and even appeared on Dick Clark's Saturday Night Beach-Nut show. Elvis Presley, so impressed by Only the Lonely, reportedly bought a box of records to give to friends. Roy and Melson followed up with Blue Angel, which reached number 9 in the US and number 11 in the UK. I'm Hurtin', backed with I Can't Stop Loving You, climbed to number 27 in the US but failed to chart overseas. Roy's rising fame allowed him to relocate to Nashville with his wife, Claudette, and their young son, Roy Dwayne. Their second son, Anthony King, would be born in 1962. Back in the studio, Roy sought a shift from the pop ballad style of his earlier hits. He began work on Running Scared, inspired in part by the rhythm of Ravel's Bolero. The lyrics told of a man nervously watching for a rival who might steal his lover away. Recording Running Scared presented a vocal challenge. Roy struggled to hit the song's final high note without breaking. Backed by a full orchestra, producer Bill Porter suggested he sing louder than the instruments since the musicians couldn't play any softer. To isolate his voice, producer Fred Foster set Roy in a corner of the studio, surrounding him with coat racks to form a makeshift booth. After 2 failed takes, Roy abandoned his usual falsetto and delivered the high A note in his natural voice. The result was electric. The musicians stopped playing, stunned by what they'd heard. On that 3rd take, Running Scared was born. Fred Foster later recounted the moment. He did it. The sound was like nothing they'd heard before. Running Scared quickly climbed to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and reached number 9 in the UK. The song set the tone for many of Roy's future hits, heartfelt ballads about emotionally vulnerable men, often ending in a powerful vocal climax. In July 1961, Crying peaked at number 2, backed by the upbeat Candyman, which helped the single stay on the charts for over 2 months. While touring Australia in 1962, a local DJ affectionately dubbed him the Big O, a nickname that stuck thanks to the big finishes in his songs. That same year brought more good news: the birth of Roy's second son and another hit with Dream Baby, How Long Must I Dream, which reached number 4 in the US and number 2 in the UK. The song, penned by country legend Cindy Walker, brought a fresh, upbeat energy to Roy's catalog. To support his live performances, Roy recruited a backing band from Dothan, Alabama, called The Webbs. They rebranded as the Candymen, named after one of his hits, and performed with him from 1962 to 1967. After parting ways with Roy, they achieved moderate success on their own with singles and albums. In 1962, Roy charted with songs like The Crowd, Leah, and Workin' for the Man, the latter inspired by a summer he spent working in the oil fields near Wink. Around this time, creative tensions began to emerge between Roy and Joe Melson. Melson was eager to focus on his solo career, leading to a gradual drift in their once prolific partnership. Tragedy strikes, the heartbreaking loss of Roy Orbison's first love. Roy Orbison, a man of extraordinary musical talent and a deep passion for automobiles and machinery, experienced a love story filled with both tragedy and passionate love. His bond with his first love, Claudette, was solidified by their shared love for motorcycles. They often embarked on thrilling adventures on Roy's motorcycles, experiencing the exhilarating feeling of freedom on the open road. However, their love story took a devastating turn on the 6th of June, 1966. On that fateful day, as they set out to explore new roads, a truck appeared out of nowhere, shattering their dreams. Tragically, Claudette lost her life in an instant, leaving Roy devastated and heartbroken. In the wake of this unimaginable loss, Roy threw himself into his work, finding solace in collaborating with Bill Dees to write music for The Fastest Guitar Alive, a film that MGM had planned for him to star in. Originally intended as a dramatic western, the film was later rewritten as a comedy. Roy's character in the film was a spy tasked with stealing and protecting a cache of gold for the Confederate Army during the American Civil War. To add an unexpected twist, his character was equipped with a guitar that doubled as a rifle, allowing him to deliver a line with a touch of dark humor. Despite his efforts and enthusiasm for the film, The Fastest Guitar Alive faced critical and commercial disappointment. Although MGM had initially included 5 films in his contract, no further projects materialized. Roy also recorded albums dedicated to the songs of Don Gibson and Hank Williams, but they failed to resonate with audiences and sold poorly. Amidst a music landscape dominated by artists like Jimi Hendrix, Jefferson Airplane, the Rolling Stones, and The Doors during the counterculture era, Roy felt disconnected from the mainstream appeal. He likened himself to a tree standing firm amidst changing seasons, waiting for his time to bloom again. As he grappled with the profound grief of losing Claudette and the challenges in his career, another devastating blow struck. While on tour in Britain and performing in Birmingham on Saturday, September 14, 1968, Roy received the heartbreaking news that his home in Hendersonville, Tennessee, had been engulfed in flames. Tragically, his 2 eldest sons perished in the fire. Fire officials suspected that an aerosol can containing lacquer may have sparked the blaze. The loss of his home and his beloved sons left Roy reeling from unfathomable pain. Unable to bear the weight of the memories within the charred remains of his home, he made the difficult decision to sell the property. In a poignant twist of fate, the property was purchased by Johnny Cash, who chose to demolish the building and plant an orchard in its place. The physical remnants of Roy's past were replaced by new life taking root in the form of an orchard. Amidst this overwhelming darkness, a glimmer of light entered Roy's life when he met German-born Barbara Jacobs several weeks before the tragic loss of his sons. Their connection provided a source of comfort and support during a time of profound sorrow. On March 25, 1969, Roy and Barbara exchanged vows, marking the beginning of a new chapter in his life. Despite enduring unimaginable loss and heartache, Roy found renewed hope and joy with Barbara. Together, they welcomed 2 sons, Roy Kelton in 1970 and Alexander in 1975, bringing new moments of love and happiness into his world. The scandalous ending of Roy Orbison. Roy Orbison, the renowned musician, continued to release albums throughout the 1970s. However, despite his efforts, none of these albums achieved significant commercial success. In fact, an entire decade had passed since he last had a chart-topping album. His singles also failed to make a lasting impact. with only a few finding success in Australia. These disappointing outcomes led to a crisis of confidence for Roy, who began to question his own abilities. To make matters worse, some of his albums from the 1970s were not even released internationally due to poor sales in the United States. In 1973, Roy made the decision to part ways with MGM Records and signed a one-album deal with Mercury Records. This move only added to the air of mystery that surrounded him. With little known about his origins, his sudden absence from the music scene went largely unnoticed. Despite his absence, one thing remained certain: Roy Orbison's influence on the music industry was undeniable. During this time, several artists released popular covers of Roy's songs, further cementing his legacy. Love Hurts, originally performed by Orbison, was reimagined by Graham Parsons and Emmylou Harris, as well as by hard rock band Nazareth and Jim Capaldi. Additionally, Sonny James's rendition of Only the Lonely topped the country music charts. Even iconic artists like Bruce Springsteen and Glenn Campbell paid tribute to Roy by incorporating his songs into their own performances. In January 1976, a compilation of Roy's greatest hits reached #1 on the UK charts, signaling a resurgence of interest in his music. That same year, he began opening for the Eagles, who had initially gained recognition as Linda Ronstadt's backup band. Speaking of Ronstadt, her cover of Blue Bayou in 1977 became a major hit, reaching #3 on the Billboard charts and remaining there for an impressive 24 weeks. This cover played a significant role in reigniting public interest in Roy Orbison and his music. Despite these glimmers of hope, Roy's return to Monument Records in 1976 and his collaboration with Fred Foster on Regeneration failed to yield the success he had hoped for. It seemed that Roy's struggles in the 1970s persisted despite these brief moments of recognition. Hope in the face of adversity. In the late 1970s, Roy Orbison was feeling under the weather and decided to escape the winter by heading to Hawaii. Little did he know that this decision would change his life. While in Hawaii, he checked into a hospital and received some shocking news. His coronary arteries were severely obstructed. This led to him undergoing a triple coronary bypass on January 18, 1978. It was a challenging time for Roy, who had been dealing with duodenal ulcers since 1960 and had been a heavy smoker since he was a teenager. Despite the odds, he felt rejuvenated after the procedure, but his weight continued to fluctuate for the rest of his life. In 1980, something unexpected happened. Don McLean recorded a song called Crying, which soared to the top of the charts, first in the Netherlands and then reaching #5 in the US. The song stayed on the charts for an impressive 15 weeks and even claimed the #1 spot in the UK for 3 weeks, as well as topping the Irish charts. This resurgence of interest in Roy's music was a glimmer of hope in what had been a challenging period for him. Despite being somewhat forgotten in the US, Roy found unexpected popularity in places like Bulgaria in 1982. It was a surreal experience for him to realize that he was as popular there as he had been in 1964. In fact, he was so overwhelmed by the attention that he had to stay in his hotel room to avoid being mobbed on the streets of Sofia. This newfound international fame was a pleasant surprise for Roy and gave him hope for the future. The year 1981 brought more good news for Roy. He and Emmylou Harris won a Grammy Award for their duet That Lovin' You Feelin' Again from the comedy film Roadie, in which Orbison also had a cameo role. This was a significant moment for Roy as it was his first Grammy, and it filled him with hope for a full return to popular music. Meanwhile, another unexpected twist was on the horizon. Van Halen released a hard rock cover of Oh Pretty Woman on their 1982 album Diver Down, introducing Orbison's music to a whole new generation. This exposure to younger audiences was yet another sign that Roy's music had a timeless quality that could resonate across generations. In the face of adversity, Roy Orbison found hope in unexpected places. From his rejuvenation after a life-saving procedure to the resurgence of interest in his music both at home and abroad, it was clear that his talent and impact were enduring. Death of an icon. The music world lost a true legend when Roy Orbison passed away, but his impact lives on. Just days before his death, he had performed at the Front Row Theater in Ohio, showing his dedication to his craft. After a brief rest at home, he flew to London for more work with the traveling Wilburys. On the day of his passing, he spent time with his friend Benny Birchfield, enjoying a simple day of flying model airplanes and sharing a meal. Tragically, he collapsed and later succumbed to a heart attack. His sudden departure shocked many, leading to memorial services in both Nashville and Los Angeles. He was laid to rest in an unmarked grave at Westwood Village Memorial Park Cemetery, leaving behind a lasting legacy in the music industry. Posthumous career. In 1989, a year after Roy Orbison died, Virgin Records released Mystery Girl, which became a big hit with the song You Got It, written with Lynn and Tom Petty. You Got It climbed to number 9 in the US and number 3 in the UK, earning a posthumous Grammy Award nomination. According to Rolling Stone, Mystery Girl beautifully captures Orbison's classic sound with modern production, making it a fitting final tribute to his greatness. His project, Traveling Wilburys Vol. 1, also saw great success, spending 53 weeks on the US charts and winning a Grammy for Best Rock Performance by a duo or group. In 1989, Orbison made history by becoming the first deceased musician since Elvis Presley to have 2 albums in the US top 5 at the same time. His posthumous success continued in the UK, with 2 solo albums in the top 3. Even after his passing, new material continued to emerge, with a demo of The Way Is Love, released in 2014 as part of the 25th anniversary deluxe edition of Mystery Girl, showcasing the enduring impact of Orbison's music. Roy's enduring legacy. But Roy Orbison's music was different. His songs didn't follow the usual patterns, and his voice and style were unique in the rock and roll world. People even compared his music to that of classically trained musicians, although he never mentioned being influenced by classical music. Instead, he created his own style of popular music, drawing from a wide range of influences from his youth. He was known as the Caruso of rock and the Big O. Roy's sons set up Roy's Boys LLC to protect their father's music and legacy. And they recently announced the release of Unchained Melodies, Roy Orbison with the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra album, and a hologram tour called In Dreams, Roy Orbison in Concert. Music critic Dave Marsh said that Orbison's compositions create a world of their own, unlike anything else in pop music. His music, like the man himself, is described as timeless and a bit eccentric, almost weird. In a concert review for the New York Times, Peter Watrous wrote that Orbison had perfected a unique vision of popular music, resisting the pressure to conform. Elton John's songwriting partner Bernie Taupin and singer K.D. Lang both praised Orbison's ability to surprise and defy expectations in his songwriting. Some of the musicians who worked with him were puzzled by his requests, but eventually, they would come to appreciate his unconventional approach. Roy Orbison's music was unconventional and ahead of its time, challenging the norms of rock and roll. Through his unique style and timeless compositions, he left an enduring legacy that continues to captivate audiences today. Thanks for watching, fam. For a more thrilling revelation about your favorite celebrity, click now on the next video that pops up on your screen.